star. It's all I do. Looking for you. And I know that you are out there looking for me too. Got my best fit on. We're gonna have some fun tonight. Are you ready for a fight? Setting your dreams of heaven on fire. Bring on the wrecking machine. Gonna ignite your every desire. Bring on the wrecking machine. For every city you burn, I'm gonna build one higher. Target locked, guns are hot. Full speed ahead. Bang, bang, you're dead. You may think you have a shot to take me down. Victory's mine instead. Got my best fit on. We're gonna have some fun tonight. Are you ready for a fight?
Walk to the dance floor! We got a party going on! Overheat your feet! We're gonna rock their shit!
Bring on the wrecking machine. Setting your dreams of heaven on fire. Bring on the wrecking machine. Bring on the wrecking machine. Gonna ignite your every desire. Bring on the wrecking machine. For every city you burn, let it burn, let it burn, let it
Hello, everyone, and welcome to. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Between Two Keepstars. I am your host, Chroma X, aka Riker, and welcome. You're now watching the first best show to air every Sunday at 2100. You're watching Between Two Keepstars. Today, I've got actually quite a few guests and a few topics. One of which is this being the Fox episode. So last week. I was talking about something weird. Anyway, it ended up with me saying, hey, Ish, we're going to do a Fox episode, to which Ish said, no, we're not doing that. Well, Ish isn't here right now, so I'm doing it. Also, test deployed to within Tantrum Range, and Evictus explodes to actually the benefit of a certain group who will probably be named here shortly. My guests today are actually quite a few. We've got Loki Choco Chips, who's a show favorite. Spicy McKinley, I think that's how I say it. We've got, I don't know.
Spicy McNice, dude.
Anyway, we've also got Mav here from Test, because since Test is going to get mentioned, I figured that it would make sense that we have at least one Test member. As well as Yeah, as well as Nerbs from Ringer Aerospace. We should see Ash. We should see Ash from Outfoxed later, as they're finishing up a stream. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. If everyone
Can I
wants
ask
to.
it? Can I ask a very simple question? What exactly is a Fox episode?
I listen. There's a person from Outfoxed here. We've ticked the checkbox.
Okay, because like I forgot my phrase shit at home, so like I don't know.
We're gonna figure out what the fox says by the end of this.
Oh jeez.
Oh no, not that song.
Please no.
What have you done?
Listen, Ish isn't here to keep things on track, so we're doing it. We're doing a thing. So yeah, do you guys want to go through and introduce yourselves? Except Loki, because everyone already knows who that is. I'm just kidding, Loki. You can introduce yourself. Or something, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I'm the Alliance Executive Hero Coalition Dot. IFC stuff. Sometimes, not recently, but sometimes. And I do Riker's Talk Show a lot.
Mm-hmm. Can confirm he does do it a lot. Next up, we have Spicy.
Hello. I'm Spicy McNicey. I'm one of RC's more active FCs. I also FC and Hero Coalition Dot, and this is the first time on Riker's show.
You poor bastard.
I just do a lot of fleets.
That's always good. And now I'm gonna let y'all go down the list, Mav.
Oh, hi. I am a Test FC, or Junior FC, previously a Strat FC during the war in Brave. And I also host Trash Talk Thursday.
That's your cue.
And I guess it's my turn. I'm Nerb Scaramoko. I am the CEO of Circle Jerk, formerly of Test and Brave. Now with the, I guess, co-executor of Winger Aerospace, the very small furry alliance.
All right, nice. So the first thing I guess we're going to cover is Test moving into within Tantrum Range. I don't really know much about this deployment. Kind of weird that they would announce deployment a week before Christmas. Mav, do you think you could give us some context?
So we were previously going to be deploying in January, and the deployment was moved up. I don't really know why we moved it up. I think the main reason is just there's a lot of really bored people in the Alliance, and we just wanted some stuff to do. Like, I'm personally excited for the fact that it's been moved up because it means I can do shit now rather than in a couple of weeks.
And speaking of people, we have Carmen that just jumped in, actually.
Hello.
Carmen, you want to... Well, Carmen's a Test FC. Actually, aren't you in Test High Command now?
Yes.
Nice. I'm guessing you jumped in to give us a little bit more context to this whole deployment.
I mean, honestly, I wasn't even watching the show. I just saw there was some stuff about Test in the blurb of what you were talking about, so I thought I'd just join.
I guess that works. Yeah, so we're currently discussing the Test deployment into Curse, I believe it is, and it's
Fabulous.
Faith. Never mind then. I need to go check my sources again. So this is just a content deployment. You guys have any idea who you're gonna fight?
Red Alliance.
Yeah, we're going to go and kick over a bunch of red lines and stuff. That's what it's all about.
I must admit, I was really surprised when you were talking about how we were deploying against a bunch of really small alliances. Now it makes sense that you thought we'd deploy to Curse. Yeah, we're not deployed to Curse.
Does anyone even live in Curse?
Just fire.
I'm pretty sure they live around Curse. I don't think they actually have any stuff in Curse. I mean, isn't Curse just where Init lives?
No. Init lives in Fountain.
I'm pretty sure they've, for a long time, had a lot of stuff in Curse, like to have a bunch of dudes who do like NPC missions and stuff down there.
It's their
I don't know how much that's still a thing.
it's their ancestral homeland, I think, as they put it one time.
I imagine they'd need one of those with health and they end up homeless. But yeah, the whole test deployment is pretty much just about going to find some content and go and make some stuff happen and generate some fun from members. Pretty much. We've already had some pretty good fights down there. We're hoping to get some more pretty soon. People seem to be pretty hyped about it. It's pretty cool.
Didn't you guys get one on your move up? What, yesterday or the day before?
Yeah, we did.
It was pretty good fun. Bit spicy, but yeah.
Yeah, our Goons and Initiative decided to bring over 400 people to try and ambush our move up. They got just absolutely fucking demolished. They killed 3 dreads and lost over 2. I think the battle report of all the systems was they lost over 400 ships and they killed 40 ships, including 3 dreads.
Yeah,
they're mega salty about it now. They're just complaining, "Oh, Pappy's a real thing still. Blue don't know all of this kind of thing." It's quite ironic. The largest coalition in the game complaining about getting blobbed.
In their defense, though, I mean, is it really different than Pappy? Because you've got PanFam and then you've got Test. Granted, Brave's no longer there, but that's kind of the same players.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is the same players, and people kind of try to make out it's a really bad thing, we're removing content from the game by being blue to each other. But the reality of the situation is the largest coalition in the game for the last decade has been Goons and the Imperium, and they're just spinning a narrative that if other people in the game are going to band together to actually have an equal-sized group to fight them, that is bad for the game, when in reality it's them that started it 10 years ago. It's okay for them to, have X amount of players, but it's not okay for other people to have X amount of players blue to each other. It's just completely hypocritical.
Yes, and then we turn the entire game into the Chinese server. Thanks, guys. Way to go.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if one person starts it, then effectively you either have to do that or you just outright lose to other people to Goons, right?
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. I mean, I was very much a realist when it came to the formation of Pappy and why it had to exist, and I spoke about that a lot on a bunch of other silly shows, and I totally get it. It's just that it also would be nice if we could have more than 2 sides in a game. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, I think that most of the people in Pappy would like that as well, but this is really just a reality of the political situation in the game, nobody wants to get rolled by fucking Goons deploying 1,000 Titans and just them being on their own, So, the reason Pappy exists is because Goons exist.
Yeah, for sure. And then the reason the Goons have to continue to exist is because Pappy exists, and it's this vicious little circle, isn't it?
I think if Pappy could disband and Goons would still stay as a coalition. I don't think Pappy disbanding would change anything there.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. I'm just saying that then becomes the spin piece, right? The dialogue surrounding Goons is well, now we have to remain a giant fucking coalition because we have another giant fucking coalition, and then nothing ever changes. But anyway, I mean, I'm just complaining, dude. I understand the whole argument.
It's basically the inevitable political end game of the game, right? I mean, if you've ever played Stellaris or something like that, you see exactly the same kind of thing happen there too. It's maybe not the best example, but it's kind of inevitable with this kind of game, I think.
I mean, it's
Range.
everyone's dream to eventually, get that world domination.
I cringe whenever I hear someone make a Stellaris reference in this game, just because of the number of times the Mittani made a reference to them being the endgame crisis during the meta show near the end of the war. It was really cringe.
I mean, I certainly think that the existence of Goons should be referred to as a crisis by anyone who's got any kind of actual morals.
If you were allowed are able to have a nomadic PvP group again, like the good old days, I think that would solve a lot of issues. But unfortunately, game mechanics right now rely on you literally holding space and literally having like an assload of people to mine moons and do other things, right? Which, I mean, that's just gotten more and more involved with players, which you can argue is a good thing, but it's led towards having just two giant sides in a game. Like back when you had PL who wasn't united with everybody, and back when you had Black Legion who wasn't united with everybody, you had disruptors in the game. And I think that was actually good for the health of the game overall. It also was a place where veteran players could go, right, to, I don't know, be elite and get all toxic and feel superior and whatever. But at the end of the day, it wasn't just joining the next biggest fucking blob of people.
Yeah, like one of the things that's changed in the game that's effectively made that to be the case is CCP for a number of years has basically been on a crusade to just remove alliance level income streams from the game.
Yes, which has killed all of the smaller alliances, or
Yeah, pretty
effectively
much.
made them fold into the bigger alliances.
It's pretty painful to see, to be honest with you. I don't think it's good for the game at all.
For sure. I mean, I'm building an alliance right now. Like, how do you think I'm building it? Do you think I have, like nomadic PvP as like a something we're gonna do? I mean, it's literally like we have space, we have wormholes. That's how we'll get content.
Yeah, CCP has kind of forced all of the smaller alliances to kind of just band together with the larger ones, and eventually, I mean, you see as a smaller alliance, you see a lot more fleets going out with larger groups and larger parties, and then eventually you end up either having somebody go AFK or some major piece of your alliance just disappearing, and then you fold into that larger group, which was not healthy for the game.
As always, I guess re-CCP.
I just realized my mic was muted. So that's actually kind of interesting because you've got like small groups still exist in Eve, and I guess I wanted to pivot to like how small groups now are surviving, and I guess like not really standing against the bigger groups, but just trying to compete, like have their space and be able to defend it. And for that, I guess that's why I've got certain guests on. So I want to hear from you guys. Like, what has it been like, or what have you guys had to do to sort of like keep your alliance stable and like not risk losing people to the bigger groups?
So for us, as like we're basically the very smallest you could be, like just tiny upstarts, and it's a rough phase. Like the whole idea of like us were just like two corps that decided to mutually band together, and like it's hard to see a road to grow from there because you can always, like I said, just like why join us? You could go join one of the easy, like go join Reddit and rat all day. Because for us, like we just roam. There's very little way for us to make money when interacting with other people. So our interactions with other people in PvP are just, money losing ventures that we enjoy. It would be nice to have some more, like, I guess a way to kick your foot in the door that didn't rely on someone kicking the foot in the door for you, right? Like, it's hard for people to go from, like, as someone who grew a corp to like hundreds of people at one point, the only reason we managed to do that is because Test, put us under their wing, right? I can't imagine ever having had space without Test taking us in. So it's kind of a problem. It's very, like, that first step is a big one, right?
I think as a small group, right, having a lot more ventures and opportunities versus the larger groups is a lot harder, right? Because you don't have things that larger groups have, right? Larger groups have the ISK, the income, the pilots, the players, right? So a lot of smaller groups have to be bankrolled by specific people. That's not always the case all the time, right? But when you have those people that are continuously just dumping ISK to make things work, and you're continuously just providing opportunities, providing content, providing fun, things that the larger alliances aren't readily doing because they don't care about the smaller guy. I feel that smaller alliances tend to care more about the individual pilot versus larger groups, right? So that's a plus of being a smaller group, but eventually you turn into caring more about the corps and yourself, trying to replenish your ISK that you've lost while doing this. So there's always a downside and upside to being a smaller group and having a smaller group.
Yeah, having gone from like a 0-person corp to 300, the hardest part is definitely when you're at like 20 to 50, because you're in that awkward middle ground where it's like, oh, there's a lot of people, but also, there's a lot more logistics.
Yeah, definitely running logistics is also kind of a rough thing for smaller alliances unless you have somebody that's willing to do it consistently. You don't have a whole logistic chain network and you don't have the infrastructure set up unless you have somebody already having that route and stuff ready to go.
So that actually brings me to another point. So the most recent changes, especially with the mining, really did buff the individual mining barges and took away from the rorks. In smaller groups, I guess in Nerbs and Loki Spicing, your guys' smaller groups, how has that affected you guys? Have you noticed that it's a lot more easy to sort of mine moons and make money because now, I guess, barges are much more powerful?
No.
I haven't mined with the new changes yet, so I can't comment on that. But from what I've seen, we've had more people mining after the fact. So that's all I can say on that.
Well, I mean, yeah. So the doubling of the moon ore and stuff like that, it's kind of a giant pain in the ass. It was for us anyway, just because we only have X amount of miners, and now it's like now we feel like we're leaving money on the table sometimes a little bit. So there's that. That being said, like, we're also growing rapidly, right? So obviously, the more miners that we're putting into Alliance, the easier that's getting, and then the less micromanagement it takes. And now a moon takes like a day to mine or a day and a half to mine instead of like the 3 days, right? Which then allows us to move on to the next thing and allows our indie people to move on to the next thing and get our guys geared up for the next thing. So yeah, making barges more powerful, I guess, was fine, but they also doubled the ore like that you have to mine, right?
At the same time, though, now you don't need to worry about, like, if you want to get any, I guess, real mining done, you don't have to worry about protecting rorks. Would you say that that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, the one thing my group did really well was protect our works, because like my corp is filled with a bunch of experienced dudes that all have like Hodreds, Faxes, Supers, like all this shit, right? So protecting rorks was not really a big thing for us. I think we've lost one rork in the corp's history, and that was just a giant blob of frat plus snuff plus a bunch of other dudes who blue scattered us. So yeah, protecting rorks was never a big thing for us at all. That's, I guess, where my group was a little bit different than, I guess, the average quote unquote small group. But then again, at the same time, we also have all of Wrecking Crew that we can call in as well for for protection to some extent. Like I'll usually just ping like, okay, Rourke's tackle, let's go. Right. I have a Titan set up. I have Sino set up. We have Faxes on grid. We have Haws on grid, and then I just bring in like an assload of Tengus and fuck shit up basically. So that's never been a main problem for us at all. Micromanaging now hundreds and hundreds of miners is going to be a new problem, but we're tackling it I think well, and pivoting a little bit.
I do think the changes are more directed at assisting people in making money on the barges. I don't really know about the moon doubling. I don't really see the moon doubling as kind of like a smart choice, right? Because it's just going to flood the market and nuke some of the prices.
Reduce the prices, which means that so you've increased the amount that the barges are able to mine, but you've also destroyed the value of the thing that they're mining, which means that they have to mine twice as much, really, in order to get the same value. So have you really helped anybody? I don't think so. I mean, maybe it makes newer players feel more included. I don't fucking know. Like, I have no answer to that. I just see it as a massive, like, time sink. So then the answer to that is put more people on the moon, recruit more miners so that you can get that shit done quicker so that we can move on to other things.
It's basically enough of like the value of people's time, mining is what it is.
Yes, correct. Which, I mean, this game doesn't take up enough of my fucking time, so thanks for that, CCP.
Yeah, from our end, we don't have moons. So for us, it's just the indie corp here that we have just deals with their own shit. So for us, it's been fairly positive because, they had barges anyway, so their barges are just suddenly more relevant. But yeah, I can't see that scaling. Like if we had moons, I would definitely be bitching. This game definitely has a huge problem with respecting people's time.
Well, it's not really that. I mean, I don't think it helps people in the long run. Like, did they double the rate at which like a hull can mine, or they like? I'm not necessarily familiar with what they did exactly.
It just kind of comes out the same. I know that they were complaining a lot about the T2 lasers, where they go really, really fast, but you waste stuff, so you end up just sitting there longer. But beyond that, I'm not a miner, so I'm not too versed in it. They seem neutral about it in general.
Right. So I mean, they really haven't done anything. Like,
No.
you get more shit to work with, I suppose. But you also, if you're going to sell that, you're kind of, you're going to sell it for the same value as you sold it before. So it doesn't really. Anyway, whatever.
It's absolutely more of a pain in the butt to drag out of like low sec.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
I mean, I could definitely see how like increasing the moon ore, it tries to help distribute the wealth between different players, right? But it's still, you're still required to have, especially as a small group, you're still required to have, the same amount of miners on field for the same amount, or longer, sorry, just to collect all of, let's say it's R64 or R4 or whatever type of ore you're trying to collect.
Yeah, that being said, like Hero Coalition dot's risen to the occasion anyway, right? Like we are in the process of recruiting a large influx of players based on those particular needs. So one interesting thing is actually starting an alliance at the beginning of these crazy ass changes has definitely allowed us to kind of bend where we need to bend in order to be successful. You know what I mean? I can't imagine having an established alliance already going and having to change all of my systems to match the changes and all that. That would have been, to me, that would have been a bigger pain in the ass. We've only existed really, I mean, as a group for less than 6 months, right? So like I'm perfectly happy bending a little bit for CCP, but I don't know, man, it's interesting. Riker, you muted again?
No, I'm here. So yeah, Carmen, I guess has the new changes affected Test's ability to mine in any way?
I mean, not hugely, I wouldn't say. People have got their own kind of individual opinions about it, but as it's affected us as an alliance, it's not been a massive change, I wouldn't say. We've sort of been telling people for a while that raw cores they were very obviously going to get phased out relatively soon. So we've been pushing people towards having more subcap barges and stuff for a while, and people seem to still be mining with those, just instead. So yeah, it's not really a massive paradigm shift, but yeah, it's going to be a bit different.
I mean, I'm happy with CCP's overall direction where they're trying to get more of those like mining people out of high sec, because like the term test mining fleet would have been a joke like 5 years ago, and now it's a thing. And I do like that they're getting people out of like perfectly safe happy land, right? But this is kind of a step back in a way.
They're not really doing a very good job of incentivizing people to leave high sec, from what I can see.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how like that incentivizes people to leave high sec, just because like in high sec you have all of the critical ore that you basically need.
I guess what I'm saying is, in general, like years ago, like mining fleets in the big nullsec alliances didn't really feel like a thing. Like when Circle Jerk was in tests, like I'm pretty sure not a single person in my corp ever sat in a mining barge. But they did. The big change I think that helped is that the passive moon miners were really bad for that, because at least now you actually need people to go out and suck up the ore. Before it was just you had R64s and you just click them once a week, and that didn't bring anyone in except like 2 Logi people, right? So at least there's a need for people to sit in barges now, so they don't just sit in high sec if they want that kind of gameplay.
Well, this is just me, and this is just my personal opinion, right? I think the passive income from the moons was possibly one of the greatest things for smaller alliances.
I couldn't agree more. Passive R64s is one of the biggest mistakes I think CCP's made in a long time, is removing that from the game. Like, I'm not saying it should have stayed exactly as it was, but high-end moons now effectively don't generate any conflict at all. And what they actually used to do was generate a lot of really good conflict and fights and content for the game. So moving away from that it robs the game of a lot of good fights and good content.
I've been around for a hot minute, and I do remember fighting consistently over giant pos sticks that were designed to ECM everything, and
Yeah, literally
horrible.
constantly.
It was disgusting, but it was so much fun, because you could literally, if you had the power and you had the ability, right? Like, let's say, I don't know, IQ 300, right? And Hero Coalition, you drop like 30 dreads on a pos stick on a group that can't counter 30 dreads, and you just reinforce the pos stick in one go, right? So I don't know. I think it was my favorite time in EVE was back when passive income was a thing.
Well, the one thing that I do see though with that whole thing is because back in that time, I specifically remember, when I wasn't in PanFam, a very angry PL running around the galaxy and pretty much killing everyone who ever wanted to own moons. So like you'd have a small alliance that would be like, hey, we want to have our own little passive moon mining. All right, and then they would build up a small little stick and be like, yeah, this is our moon. And then a bigger Apex group would come down, just completely wreck it, put a POS down there, and then move to another region.
I mean, at that point, the moon distribution was terrible. They were fairly concentrated, and you actually could do that. Be harder now because they spread them back out more. But yeah, at one point that was like you couldn't ever touch an R64 because it would summon forth Pandemic Legion. But
I do think like having in today's EVE, right, having the spread of moons that we have, I think it would be way more beneficial to have all of them be passive income versus you have to go out there and Oracle. But I mean, again, CCP does what CCP does.
There's been some good suggestions around that. One of them was making a different moon drill module, which was passive, but mined like a bunch less, like 25-30% or something like that. So there's like some trade-off. And there's certainly some stuff that CCP could do in that area, but yeah, the current status quo of just not having any passive moon mining at all, it does diminish the game, I think.
Well,
they have the waste mechanic now too, right? So it could just be wasteful.
I do think. Oh, go ahead, Spicy.
No, I was just gonna say, I do think having some sort of passive income would be a lot better and a lot easier for new alliances to start up, and it would possibly change the dynamic of the game. I'm not saying it would break up any like giant blocks, but it would possibly give the opportunity for another group like Black Legion or the old Pandemic Legion or some sort of nomadic PvP group like Snuffed Out is right now, give the ability for them to siege someone in nullsec or attack someone in nullsec consistently, and over time be able to change that landscape or draw attention away from the Pappy Goon conflict. Because I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but the Pappy and Goon conflict is getting a little old in my book. But
I wanted to pitch this. So I am of the opinion that resource gathering and all that, like the old moon mining had it to where alliances would gather resources, and considering we want to go away from stockpiles, I think that if they wanted to add some sort of passive income for alliances, they should do it, but have it to where it generates ISK. So like, let's take stars for example. An alliance would put down some sort of platform on a star, which it would then do what the Triglavians did to the start and start harvesting resources, but instead of giving that resource to the Alliance, it would the whole idea would be that put this down, and then NPCs like different factions would come in and basically take the resources, but then give the Alliance a payout. That way the Alliance is still making money, but they wouldn't be making actual resources that would contribute to building up stockpiles, which would then lead us to the same situation where everyone has a ton of stockpiles and the economy's totally out of whack. Because I think that in sort of based off of what CCP is doing, they want to do everything they can to make it so that alliances aren't making these huge stockpiles. And I think that adding a passive thing that basically generates resources for alliances probably wouldn't be what they're looking for.
Well, I think this is the best way that we would be able to get rid of stockpiles is not per se change the pricing of ships, right? Change the pricing of the logistic ships and changing the ability to sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Getting rid of stockpiles.
Yeah, so getting rid of the logistic ships and the ability to like consistently use supers and titans to counter pretty much everything, right? Like they have now, and keeping dreads and carriers the ability to use, right? Because dreads and carriers are those force multipliers that groups like to use to assist everything, right? But now people have started using faxes left, right, and center. And with the cost of everything, right? I know personally groups don't want to drop, 4 or 5 dreads just to counter one fax and then have 3 more faxes dropped on the other side and you lose all your dreads. Now you're out basically the entire fight.
I mean, one big thing that, it's probably like a fairy tale notion, but if the servers got fixed to a point where you didn't have massive amounts of tie-dye when you had thousands of people on a single node, and I understand how ridiculous that sounds, but if that were to occur, then like one Titan brawl would pretty much fix the problem, right? Like you would lose shitloads of Titans.
I was deeply upset to see the last big, war end on the fact that servers can't handle it, because I would love to see just Dread super brawl all the time.
I mean, the thing is like that wouldn't happen all the time. That happened a couple times.
It would happen like twice.
Yeah. The people would like either stop or their Titan would be dead, right? Like that's pretty much how that would go. So that would significantly deplete the stockpiles. But I don't know how realistic it is to expect that.
With the progression of the game, we're all getting to the point where all these major alliances have stockpiles, right? So it's kind of pointless to try to prevent the stockpiles. Just more readily use
more
them.
Usage. Yeah, exactly. More usage would probably be what you want. Not make them so fucking expensive that no one ever wants to field another one.
Like the best outcome of people having stockpiles is to have more incentives to use the stockpiles to go and fucking fight people and blow stuff up, because that's like fun in the game.
And again, that kind of wraps the whole topic back to the, everybody's got this block mentality, including goons, including Pappy, including Frat, right? Everybody has that block mentality where it's like, okay, they're blue to me, we're blue to them, right? Then we're not going to use our dreads and stuff that are in our home region, because then other people have to deploy and they're not going to have those major assets until they move them up. So I think this is again just my opinion.
Really
I think
having. I don't think.
Second.
I don't think that's really true at all. A lot of these blocks in the home regions, they have very little, reason or need to use things like dreads. Really. If there was like more reasons for you to use them, then more of them would die at home. But as it stands for a long time, there's not really been very many good reasons to actually use caps at all, unless you're like attacking someone or at war.
So someone in chat actually mentioned, am I correct in thinking that alliance income or taxability of stuff for alliance is more of a reason than content was for passive moon mining?
Can you repeat that?
So someone in chat asks, am I correct in thinking that alliance income or taxability of stuff for alliances is more of a reason than content was for passive moon mining?
Well,
what now or back then? Like back then, it was definitely about the money, but as a side effect, you got really good fights. And I think if we want to go back to that in the future, it's because people want fights, not because they want the money.
Well, right, but one way or the other, you have to be able to provide simple things like SRP, right? Like if you can't do that, you're not going to be a group. So it's one thing to talk about big groups in that context, but when you're talking about small groups in that context, that's where the money is really important. Like for a small nomadic group, like I was in Shadow Cartel after these moon changes, like the original, like we're moving away from active from passive shit and going to active, and then also low sec doesn't get any ore anymore, and all this other shit happened. Like I watched them die, right? Because there were no indies. We didn't have enough miners. We didn't have enough of those things, and they just couldn't keep up. They didn't have SRP, and then then you're done, right? So for a smaller group, I think it's a lot about the money. It would allow you to have small nomadic groups that could go and take some moons, use their forces, fill their pockets, and then yes, a pandemic legion shows up, and then you guys just go to a different region and then do it again, fill your pockets for a bit, and then you keep the SRP train rolling, and then everyone's having fun, and it's all about PvP, right? Like there's like a couple of indies in your group, and that's about it. Whereas now, right, it's a completely opposite fucking thing. So this is just let's have a giant RTS in space, which I love RTSs, so great, but it's certainly a very large paradigm shift from the game that I started playing. I'll just say that.
The thing with RTSs as well is that it's really fun and interesting if you're the general, and it's not very fun and not very interesting if you're like the peon worker.
Exactly, and that's the thing, right? It's like you actually have to find people who want to do this mind-numbing work, and it's like some people do. Some people love mining, and I love those people because I need those people, but it's very difficult to find some of those people. I mean, to have a gameplay where you kind of have to rely on Netflix to want to do it, that's, you know what I mean? Like when they took the passive drone shit away for like a day, or they talked about taking it away or whatever, and the upheaval of people were like, now I can't watch Netflix and do my job, and then like that's kind of saying something, right? When that's the gameplay that the alliances need you to do in order to survive, like it's not so good.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs when a lot of like the money making activities that people are pushed towards in the game, at least on the kind of lower to mid level of it, it's a sad state of affairs when the best way to enjoy the game is to play a different game while you're doing it.
Exactly. Sorry, Spice, I cut you off, dude.
Oh no, it's all good. I was just gonna say that I think there needs to be more actual activities to do in Eve. I remember back in the day, I would form 3 or 4 times a week just to save pos sticks, and there were like R64, R32 posses, and it was some of the best fights I've ever had in Eve. Right, you have a pos that's not really shooting because it's not repaired. Right, typically they reinforce all the guns, so it's just fleet versus fleet. Raw content, and you can retreat inside your pos stick, but it's going to blow up eventually, so you kind of need to save it. So it is by far the best time that I've ever had in Eve, and it was one of the most active times too. So
And I, for one, deeply miss the days where I could just log in to get in a fleet and die, and then get SRP'd, and then lather, rinse, repeat forever. Like I do miss that deeply.
I mean, technically,
personally, go ahead.
I was about to say, technically, if you could still do that if you had a system where you made, like, let's say ratting, like you had ratting income and then that just paid for SRP. But then that's still kind of that would limit you based off of, I guess, how much ratting gets done.
Yeah, I've always been annoyed with the tax system. Like Circle Jerk, even I at no point when I was in charge had tax, because it only taxes certain activities, which is kind of felt like I was putting all the load on like ratters, because really that's all it taxes. So yeah, the tax system is very half-baked and not really easy to rely on.
Well, I think a lot of the PvPers would come back if there was actual good content, not just hacks online.
Yeah, I mean, I left test because it was just, we would form up and then dock up and then form up and then dock up. I was like, I'll just go roam low sec because I actually get fights out here sometimes because everyone's so risk averse now, right? Because they have so much shit.
Hell or blue balls.
a lot of the problem isn't like the fact that everyone uses the same ships all the time and they're kind of boring, even though that is a problem. Like the main problem is that there's just nothing that's really that worthwhile to fight over. Like
yeah, it's not worth the risk.
all of the objectives that you can fight over, they're just not that important, really. You know, it's kind of a shame. Like if there was more stuff that was like more valuable and more important, it would generate more fights. Like
The game
CCP's
needs
been
more
for a long
conflict
time.
drivers.
CCP's for a long time been like just like flattening the value of everything in the game in nullsec. They're just like reducing the worth of it and then spreading out to be in more places. And you know, it's this kind of farms and fields mentality. And you know what it means is that when the entire game is farms and fields, there's no fucking castles left.
Right, and then keep in mind too, right? The structure changes have done a lot here. Like I can't just take apart my pauses and then move when I shit in somebody's Cheerios, right? Like when I piss some people off, right? And I got a 250 bill Satio sitting in space. I mean, what do you think's going to happen then, right? So that leads me to obviously not really pissing people off, which leads us to this kind of stale let's make a deal kind of gameplay, right? Where you're just making deals with everybody, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, whereas before, right? Like, you piss some people off, you take your shit, you leave. Oh, or I lost a pause or two, no big deal, like whatever, right? Things have changed a lot. Like, you can't just unrig your structures and leave. You could, but like you're just wasting an assload of money. So that significantly changed how dynamic the game actually can be.
I personally feel like it's a sandbox game, right? But it's also objective based, very very heavily, and a lot of the objectives that CCP have been making have not really been worthwhile at all. It's been a lot more player driven content, and today's Eve is less confrontational than back in the day when we had Grath or I don't know, Mr. V, or a PGL that actually wanted to take fleets out.
So the solution, to be clear, is just let's bring back Wrath, Talcon, and
That's 100% the solution.
just get Wrath back. He'll fix it.
Grath will fix the game.
So, speaking of losing space, a while back, there was an incident where, and I think Nerbs, I think you can go a little bit more into this, but it highlights, I guess, what happened. That kind of highlights this sort of good mentality that I think we need more in Eve. Based off of what I know, and Nerbs, you can go and correct me, is that Winger had a wormhole, and they had a Forzar and all that stuff, but then Russians came in.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing, right? It's like, oh, we had this place, we were doing a thing, we were defending it, but eventually, like, there are these giant blocks, and if they say, oh, I don't want you here, you're out, right? Like, I would love to be able to, like, have something worth defending, right? Like you said, to draw us in, like, I would happily, like, I'm a terminal shitster, I would happily put up little citadels in people's space and, like, say, come fight me. It's just, there's always a disproportionate response, right? Like, you piss someone off, you get 8,000 people come in at you, right? Because everyone wants to fight, right? Like, I don't blame them. If I had a blob, I would blob all of you, but I don't. And yeah, it comes down to, like, the state of things where we have a couple groups kind of, it's really hard to get away from it because those big groups, kind of see everyone trying to muscle in who isn't on their side as the enemy, and then what are you going to do, right? And yeah, it's like I said, back in the day when we did have the little pause sticks, like when Circle Jerk first formed, like, we got into test because we spent all of our time pissing in cornflakes because it was more possible then, I guess, but now just the scale of everything has made it really hard for, like, the little 20-person fleet to really do anything.
Well, so from my experience, right, and the benefit of playing the game for so long and going through so many different phases is that unless you encounter an FC who has played during the pause phase or played during a phase where pauses were a thing, you could literally just set up a large stick, make it the memeiest stick you've ever seen, and then just sit there and wait for them to respond, and then you can play pos games all day. And they don't know how to react to this, right? They've never fought this kind of warfare. They've never played this kind of game, right? And all the spaghetti code means that posses will probably never leave the game. And I think that is one of the most fun that I've had on like a 20 to 30 man scale. Is just going and harassing like a giant blob, as long as you can get your posse up and some of your guns anchored, or even just your posse up period. I think it was quite fun.
Just Mimitar guns and go.
Exactly. Just like mediums and smalls, and then they're just sitting on grid wondering why they're dying.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting. So someone in chat mentioned, let me see if I can find it, about battleships. So someone in chat said, reverse the battleship resist nerf and give them faster warp speed. That would change the meta. What do you guys feel about that?
Not really.
So now
in nullsec, that won't change the meta at all.
we also need them to keep up with Munins. Is that the plan?
I mean, the meta of nullsec is the assault damage control. I mean, that's literally it. It's literally, if it doesn't have an assault damage control, it isn't viable.
Yeah, and like switching the meta to just another ship, it's just, we'll start complaining about that ship in like 6 months anyway.
People who like make these arguments a lot of time just fundamentally misunderstand like why these things are popular in nullsec, right? Like in nullsec, there's basically two things you're ever going to fight over, and it's like single grid objectives like citadels, and then like spread out objectives like IHUB soft timers. And for all the soft timers, you require a mobile fleet because you have to move around a lot. So hacks are very good for that. And then when you're fighting on single grid objectives like citadels, due to their mechanics, are incredibly oppressive against battleships unless you're defending them. So out of the kind of like 5 or 6 things that you could often be doing as objectives to fight over in nullsec, there's like one of them, which is defending citadels that you can easily and effectively use battleships for. And it's purely down to the mechanics of the game. You can make battleships better, but they would have to be so much better than what they are now for them to actually really upset the meta in any way, because they have significant drawbacks.
I think my favorite meta in all of EVE was back in the first Goon War, First World War B. It was the T3C and Macarial meta.
I used to love T3C fleets, like the armor T3s. They were great.
You'd run into a fleet of like 700 hostiles and just survive somehow.
Yeah, well, Proteuses were like disgusting.
It's like Proteuses and Beam Legions, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They were disgusting. It was honestly some of the best content I've ever had in EVE. Because like it didn't matter what they formed, you just kind of survive. But I think the new meta right now is just kind of stalled out to the point where like there needs to be something different. I don't know how long we've been on Hacks Online. I did a deployment for a year. I was gone, and I come back and we're still flying Munins.
Yeah, the Citadel there that I think it was G-Tech 8 that got blown up. I left just everything when I left tests, and it blew up, and I got like 5 years worth of Munins out of it. Like,
there's loads of stuff that could be changed in the game, which is like nothing to do with changing ship balance at all. That would completely change the ships that are used all the time. Like IHUB timers, for example, right? If IHUB timers were a static single grid objective where you couldn't have Citadel on the same grid, you'd immediately see loads of battleships being used for that. If Fortizars and kind of large, L and XL size structures were not as oppressive to battleships as they are, you'd again also begin to see a lot more battleships being used. So you can change a lot of stuff in the game. There's nothing to do with battleships and hacks, and completely change the way that battleships and hacks are actually used in the game.
I don't know about you, but playing back in the day when IHUBs were in actual single grid objectives, stations were single grid objectives, TCUs were single grid objectives, I think having single grid objectives were possibly, it drove more fights, right? It didn't allow people to just run and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to camp this part of the constellation and take all the nodes here, and if I don't win, I don't win.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to say that going back to that is a good idea, because I don't think it's a good idea, but I was just using it as an example that you can change stuff that's nothing to do with the ships, and then suddenly it'll drastically change like what is popular to be used without actually affecting a balance pass or anything for hacks.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
Turns
and
out game balance is hard.
of course, going back to that would be probably the worst idea ever. But I mean, it just creating more objectives that are, I don't know, single grid objectives, or spanning across just the system that you're in, right? Would drive a lot more fights. It wouldn't allow people to just run away through other systems and try to just gate camp on their advantage versus your advantage type thing.
Disregard progress, return to monkey. Drake fleet only.
Drake fleet only. Yep. There you go.
Drake fleet, best fleet.
And I've seen some Drake. Was the Drake fleet issue? Like the Navy Drake boats.
Yeah, you can make the Navy Drake okay. It's not like Drake fleet was like the perfect example of game balance gone wrong, because they were cheap, everyone could fly it, and like it worked. So like everyone was flying Drakes. Like I'm pretty sure nobody had anything like hacks aren't nearly as bad as like Drake fleet was, because it was just Drakes. There's absolutely no wiggle room. Like we all flew the same fit, the same ship. It was the worst. So I guess the TLDR is we're in a slightly better space than we used to be. Progress has been made, as bad as it seems.
Now we fly Munins and Serbs. So
Yeah, now we got 2.
And it flies Ishtars. Don't forget Enit.
Yeah. Doing God's work, flying
They
one
actually
other.
They actually don't use them for anything other than like AFK bashing structures, though. So I'm not really sure how much you would want to call that an actively used doctrine.
I've seen them in a few fights. I mean, I live down in Providence, right? So I see goon fleets quite often come through, and I see quite a few of them go to like defense structures, and I mean it's a very singular purpose doctrine, right? It's either defense or off structure fighting, right? Which you rarely see nowadays, but.
So one thing that
I mean, there's actually quite a lot of ships that are used in the meta at the moment, and like the hack meta that we have at the moment is probably one of the more healthy ones that I've seen in the game. Like there's quite a wide variety of stuff that is used in kind of a much more of a rock paper scissors fashion than has been in the game previously. So
I think that if you actually just kind of booted Munins at, like if Munins didn't exist, right, you'd actually have a pretty balanced hack meta. The thing is that like if you take Serbs up and then they happen to bring Munins, you're kind of fucked. So you know what I mean? If you bring Armor Zealots, I mean, you might be okay, but it depends how many they have, and more than likely it's still going to hurt a lot, depending on what you want to do. But if you're talking about like Fozzie Soft shit, where mobility and just damage is the most important, like there's no better ship than the Munin, unfortunately, and it's very difficult to counter that with anything other than Munins.
well, like
Could use
during,
Feroxes.
I was about to say during I guess Vietnam, I noticed that there was a lot of you had one group would bring Munins, the other would bring Eagles, and then another group would bring Serbs, and then those would all kind of fight each other. And there was sort of a rock paper scissors thing, but that was when the fight was on a single grid. At least that's what I noticed.
I mean, you kind of need, so the Eagles are kind of just like the tank fleet, right? And then the Munins are more DPS with a brawling tactic, and then the Serbs are kind of just sit at 130 and snipe the best you can. So kind of need the Eagles and Munins there to kind of face tank for the Serbs.
Carmen, do you have a lot of, like, have you used Eagles, like large Eagle fleets against large Munin fleets?
yes.
And how did that go? Do you think that the Eagles could definitely just counter them?
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, okay.
I wouldn't want to say counter them necessarily, but like if you force the Munins to fight at range, then the Eagles will like just straight up just turbo dunk them like super hard.
Right.
If you fight close range, it's a lot more even, but it's not like the Eagles are countered by Munins at close range. It's a lot more even than you think.
Because Javelin, yeah.
God no one would ever use Javelin. It's terrible.
Yeah, Loki, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm. So at 0, you use antimatter? Is that what you...
Antimatter or thorium, like more likely thorium. Depends how close they are, though. But yeah, antimatter is 0.
So one thing that also happened recently, and I wasn't able to talk about this on last show because it happened pretty much during the show, was that Evictus disbanded, and a lot of their corps seem to be going to various different alliances. I know Init picked up a lot of corps, as well as Hero Coalition Dot, which, by the way, I found it was hilarious because Shattered Armor was. I could tell he wasn't happy that a new hero coalition was formed.
Are you using your alliance as like a shameless plug in your show, Riker? Shame on you, my friend. Shame on you.
I mean,
Yeah, he's shamelessly plugging you, Loki. Being very mad at him. He's shamelessly plugging you.
I'm upset. I'm irate right now. Actually, I don't even know what's going on. Yeah. I mean, apparently the hopefully effective rookie organization meme was, at least it got to one person, so that's good. I mean, it was just kind of like, it was more of a nod to NC Dot than anything, right? Like NC Dot dotting a former coalition that I guess they presumably hated. I have nothing against what Hero Coalition was. I just thought that it was just kind of a smug thing to do, and it's kind of funny, so I just did it. I don't know.
Well, I think personally the best part is that Hero Coalition Dot is just kind of like the Hero Coalition of old. We only have one super, so I don't really know what to do about that, but we'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, we don't have caps. The stuff I talked about defending orgs, we can't do it, so don't take that for.
Yeah, it's too late. You told me I have more supers. I'm gonna go put up that pause stick you recommended. Be right back.
Please do.
But yeah, no, we did actually. We were fortunate. We had recruited some Evictus members earlier on. Some really good guys actually. So shout out to like DMT. They're great. Small corp, wanting to grow, and we talked to them and gave them the opportunity, I guess, to do that in our alliance, and then they were able to basically maybe talk to some people in Evictus and say, hey guys, this is actually like a really fun, we're having a good experience basically, and like we recommend you come here. And because of that, we are fortunate enough to, there will be some Evictus corps joining us, and we're super stoked about that.
And if any Evictus corps are still shopping, you can join us. We can provide government-mandated personas after a short personality quiz.
I think the best meme about everything that happened is that not even 4 days after the announcement of Evictus's disbandment, three of the major corps dropped roles and transferred all their structures to fraternity.
Oh boy.
Oh, it was great. There's like 7 fraternity Fortizars deep in SO now.
Real talk, I love fraternity as like the small roaming group, because fraternity like responds to us like stealing from their ESSs with like ridiculous stuff, and it's just amazing. Like every time they show up, it's just like, oh, what will they bring today? Like they don't believe in half-assing defending an ESS. Like if you want to steal from an ESS, I highly recommend Frat.
We had one pretty successful.
Oh yeah, you'll die, but it'll be like you'll have a ridiculous kill mail with like 8,000 like random things on it.
We had a pretty successful ESS fleet against Frat actually a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they're slow to move. Like you can go around like and pick it up, but it's because they're gonna drop caps on you on the gate somewhere. Like they're great for that. Just if you want to just see like thousands of people react to you, so you can feel good about yourself, like they're the people.
Should probably like go out in USTC. It's a lot calmer. Like it's like, oh, it's Chinese Prime. Let's go. Like
no, that's the time.
It's gonna be rough, yeah.
I want to see some caps. It's the only time I get to see them, right? my assault frigate gang has been killed by dreads. Is great.
I think last time I went to Frat Space, we stole like 700 mil from an ESS. We had 8 Praxises, 2 Rattlesnakes, and 4 Scimitars, and we just sat in some ESSs. One jump away from their staging, they had like 6 carriers on a gate waiting for us.
Yeah, it's the response to the ESSs is great. They have been very good because like either nobody responds and you just fly around shitting up local and stealing shit, or they like go hard. Like nobody ever goes in the middle there.
By the way, never drop a latch or an Arazu rather, at 0 of short range battleships because
Short range, perfect tracking, autocannon praxises.
Yeah, that was good times.
We instant nuked it.
Yeah, we always bring just as many polarized guns as we can fit because you drop at the same spot. So we just sit at the dropout point in the ESS and just hope that whoever comes in first dies before everyone else can come in. And our ships are so cheap that, you know, we just have to do that once or twice a month and we're risk positive.
So we filamented in with our fleet, and I think they tried to drop us with an Arazu, get like 5 Tengus through, and 4 Dictors, and the 4 Dictors bubbled all of our battleships. They in turn bubbled all of their Tengus, and we had no points, so we just webbed them inside of their own bubbles, and just they just fed a bunch of Tengus to us. It was great.
And for the listeners, let that be a lesson. ESS is underrated. Go check them out. Good fun.
Well, they dropped us on a gate, but yeah, I mean, we were going to the SS, so I guess,
Yeah, that was they knew deep down inside. You look like stealing types.
yeah.
It's funny. Once I left basically Pappy or PanFan test, whatever it's called now. The first thing I did was I went and I tried to steal from a test ESS, and I'm sitting there on a VedMac, got roughly 2 minutes down. Then someone from Diva warped in and was sitting on the gate. They waited until a Balgorn could come in. Balgorn came in, started fighting, and I just instantly died. Should have burned out. I had the chance to, but yeah, it's amazing where those ice storm filaments can take you.
Was it Jeremy?
Nah, it wasn't Jeremy. At least I don't think it was. I'm like 76% sure it wasn't Jeremy.
It's a very precise amount of precise number to bring out here. Sorry, I'm also scanning wormholes at the same time as we're doing this. Got shit to do.
Anyway, we didn't really talk much about the test deployment. That was basically just test going to SO to go and fight stuff.
Kind of like, why does everyone keep getting it wrong? We've gone to Faith Abolus, and yeah, we're going down there to just basically go and fuck stuff up down there and try and fight whoever's down there, try and make some content. Mostly going to go to shoot Red Alliance, I think.
And
I don't know if there's much to say about it right now. I mean, we just moved down there yesterday.
So I did hear that that Goons did try to interdict your move up. How did that go?
They killed 3 Dreads and lost like 400 ships is what happened.
That seems
So-
like the opposite of what you would want to do.
Yeah, I mean, because of the price of Dreads being so expensive and the price of Kikimoras being so absurdly low, I mean, the battle report ended up relatively even-ish. I think the total battle report for like all of the systems that we fought in was about 45 ships killed, destroyed from the Test and Pappy side, well, not Pappy side, and over 400 ships destroyed from the Goon side. So they brought like 2 pretty much full Kikimora fleets to try and tackle a bunch of our caps that were taking gates and try and kill them. We were ready for them, and they all died. Is pretty much what happened. It's a pretty good start to our deployment, to be honest with you. Like, everyone was super hyped up about that afterwards, so my hat's off. Thank you, Init, for coming along, and Goons as well.
I'm guessing you're expecting to see a lot of Goons during this deployment, or a lot of Imperium forces?
I don't know. It depends how much they actually bother to turn up. Goons and Imperium are generally quite lazy when it comes to kind of going further afield for stuff that's not easy for them to get to. So we might see a lot of them, and if we do, we'll just go and fight them. And if we don't, then that's fine as well.
And this deployment is just test, correct?
Yes, just test.
All right, and someone in chat said, down 3 irreplaceable ships. Do you have a comment for that?
we've got like several hundred dread holes in low sex, so they're not irreplaceable at all. They were already replaced within about 40 minutes of them dying.
They actually made money from dying.
Yeah, we paid them out like more money than the ships are actually worth, so not irreplaceable in any way.
So they were so replaceable. Never mind. I was going to try to make a joke, but it was bad. It's very bad.
I mean, if it was like a super or a titan that died, then yeah, that would be a lot more of an argument that it's very difficult to replace those nowadays, or at least at the moment. But like dreads irreplaceable? Are you joking?
Yeah, the dread market seems to like still be quite fluid, to be honest.
I mean, again, no one's really building them at the moment, but relatively soon there's going to be changes coming in to make them cheaper, and I presume within the next few months people will start building them again. And until that point, we've got, like I said, hundreds of dread holes and low sex that will just tide us over until then. It's really not an issue at all for us.
That's actually a great segue to our next topic, or really the final topic of the CCP stream. So last weekend, I believe CCP did a stream, and I guess my question is, how does everyone feel about that? Do people feel, I guess, confident with what CCP said? The TLDR of it was they understand that the last couple of years have been tough, and they want to add a bunch more content. They want to make dreads cheaper, and that's pretty much the rough TLDR that I've got right now.
Is this like them abusing us and then telling them that they love us? Is that
I thought that was quite encouraging, to be honest with you.
No, I mean I didn't see it though.
I watched a bunch of it. Like I was dipping in and out because I had to do stuff. But
was this the like 30K like stream thing that I heard about, or is that something else?
No, this was like some of the CCP devs did like a Q&A stream where they kind of went through some of the stuff that they had gone and talked about in the winter status update. Just kind of went into a little bit more depth, like the reasoning why and what was going on and what their goals were, kind of thing. Yeah, well, obviously, like they're not hardcore players of the game, right? Like almost none of the real developers at CCP will be, just because it's a job. But it was quite encouraging to hear what they were saying. I think that a lot of their maybe like their strategy and like what their goals are, I think, are pretty straightforward, and they're pretty good things to be aiming towards that no one would really disagree too much with. And often where these guys get criticized more is like on the specific implementation details. But that's really details rather than kind of like what the goals are. So it feels like they're moving in the right direction. And maybe they won't get every single implementation of a change right, but like they're all kind of like going in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah, and CCP I've found is a very data-driven kind of like they like to seem to like to try things anyway and just see what happens. And once the numbers come in, they typically, will go try something else pretty quickly. So I have faith that they'll fix it. We've been stuck in this game for years. We're not getting out that easy.
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead, man.
Sorry. I'm a big fan of smaller ships, so I'm kind of happy that the expensive ones are the big ones are kind of expensive right now, but that's my bias. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know. If you made the hacks more expensive too, I'd probably feel a lot better about it, like overall. But the fact that hacks have just remained like so economical while being so OP is kind of like, I don't know. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, in the end, they are a cruiser, so it didn't affect them very much at all.
One of the things that I actually found was I'm really excited for the new sites that they're saying that they're going to introduce. I always like more not PvP, but I always like more content in the game because honestly, I feel like over the past year there really hasn't been like much new mechanical content. Like they introduced the new dread sites or the new capital rogue drone sites, but other than that, it feels like they've introduced a couple of mechanics, but there really hasn't been much in the way of content, I guess.
I don't know if I don't know. I'm not one of those big believers that CCP needs to do a lot. Like generally just improving on the things that they have would probably be good, but I don't know. The content I go out and try to get involves other players and is driven by other players, and I don't necessarily need there to be a lot of other stuff going on. Like the fact that you have storms roaming around fucking shit up is one thing, incursions, and on top of that you have high sec rats that fucking kill everything that moves if you don't have the right stand-ins. I don't need any more of that kind of content, to be perfectly honest. I'm happy with where we're at. Please stop doing that. NPCs affecting the sandbox and your ability to play with other players is kind of, I don't know, it's not really something I'm looking at it in a positive way. So if you're going to create more content, make it so that it's content that players can take to use with other players, I guess. Same thing with the instance PvE sites. I understand that they make ISK, and that's probably what's needed right now. So I'm not complaining about that, but the fact that it can be done pretty much relatively independent from the rest of the game is it's not very sandboxy.
Yeah, and I totally understand that too. The one thing that I will say is that having rats and stuff interrupt PvP, like the whole thing where you had NPCs attacking Fortizars and all that and citadels like that. That really wasn't that fun, but more PvE. It's like, okay, you can choose whether or not you want to engage with it. Like again, the different sites. It's not something that's going to be forced upon you. It's something that you can choose whether or not you want.
For sure.
You want to engage in.
When you have high sec rats going around ganking jump raiders, I think we've gone a little too far.
Kind of funny though, but yeah, probably too far.
Yeah,
I mean, it is funny.
It is real funny
if you're not the dude in the jump raider. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of was disappointed in the whole Triglavian thing because it would be cool to have existential threat, but it was really just oh, we're just going to do a couple things and then forget about it. And we kind of all knew that they're just going to do a couple things and forget about it because that's kind of what CCP does. Be cool to have a long running storyline or something like that we all have to care about, do something, but it really wasn't that in the end. It's just the only lasting thing is that sometimes a jump freighter gets ganked.
Yeah, I think the Pochven thing was pretty neat though. That's
Pochven is real fun.
Yeah, it's a whole space where you can go, and I actually preferred that it would be kept exclusive. Not that I'm anyone who I didn't have any of the standings. I didn't play that game. That's not what I do. But it kind of seemed cool that only certain people could get in and do stuff and reap the rewards of having go around those standings and all that. I thought that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I kind of like that people can move around the lower value systems because it's led to more combat. Because before you'd go into a system and be locked there and you couldn't go looking for a fight. And I do we've gotten a couple kills there recently because we got into a bad system, but we could just move to another one where some people were doing shit. But the home systems are still locked off, but you need a lot of standings for those.
Well, the thing with that now is that now that there's, I guess, no lock, and now that you've got a couple of Fortizars, me personally, I think that there shouldn't be any player Fortizars.
Yeah, they need to get rid of those monsters big time because they are just a safety zone in an area that's supposed to be chaos, right?
Yeah, the fact that goons and Horde, the fact that Horde now pretty much controls Pochven and does all the dread sites because there's no one to contest them because they've got a Fortizar in Scarcon and they can go in and out as they please.
I would definitely contest that. I've seen a huge amount of BRs where Horde have been clapped by really small groups in Pochven because they have a much better kind of understanding of the mechanics. I don't think Horde have a monopoly on Pochven.
Right, they don't have a monopoly, but they've got a foothold to where if at any point they decided that, hey, we want we want to go in there and we really want to just like say, hey, this is ours now, like they could, and they wouldn't have to do any work to, you know, get the standings and to actually like dock and use the stations.
So, having spent a lot of time in Pochven, I was in diplomatic like relations with all the Pochven groups, and of them, the only one that is still alive is one that's Goon affiliated, because they own the citadels, which I think are quite disruptive. They kind of go against the because like they basically have a safe hide spot, and they just stay in that system where they have the safe hide spot. But there's a mechanic. If we wanted to, we could kill it. So I think CCP shouldn't take them out. I think we should just, take it, all band together and blow it the fuck up. Goons will be busy someday. And I'm sure we will. So, I'm not like, yes, it's a problem, but it's a problem I think we could deal with if we were motivated enough. So it's my call to arms for the Pochven people.
Yeah, and I totally agree. The one thing I will say is that that certain group, Strybog, was actually reset by Goons due to the fact that, I don't know why, I guess Goons just weren't interested anymore.
Oh, there's our chance. Let's go. Let's fuck them up.
I'm pretty sure, right, Cabals have structures in Pochven. I think other groups do as well. Like,
Yeah, they're really
just...
valuable now, right? Because you can't put new ones.
Yeah.
So
I really don't think it's just a couple of groups of who have structures in Poch. Like, it's quite diverse, actually.
Yeah, I'm just bitching because none of them let me dock.
I mean, you don't really need to build a dock in them. There's NPC stations, right?
Yeah, and arguably they're a little more fun because you can duke it out on the edge of them.
Yeah.
But like I said, if I'm sure we will eventually burn them all down because there's just, one day somebody will decide to do something about it. And that's kind of the fun of Pochven, is that it's much more like chaotic and ad hoc than like nullsec. So the politics are hard to follow because
I was about to say that the nullsec politics, that all you need to know about nullsec politics is that depending on what your side, it's either Goons or Pappy, or you just don't care. Those are the three things.
But yeah, I'd love to see more people roaming in Pochven. Don't be scared. Come in and fight us. Like, honestly, it's usually just cruiser gangs roaming around there, so.
So that actually brings me to a question that I have now. Nerbs, is your group, are you guys staged in Pochven? Like, that's your home, I'm guessing?
It's kind of hard to live there, so we just like roam through it. Like, we'll jump in, do content, then jump back out. The reason it's hard to kind of live in is because of the standing stuff, and it's kind of hard to get everyone in the corp to the same level, because ideally we'd lock ourselves away in one of the home systems and then come out to fight. But yeah, Pochven has been very good for us for killing. I keep trying to lure our indie corp over because there are really good Oranoms there and get their spot back, but
I was about to say, I hear there's a group that has moons that need to be mined.
Shameless plugs.
I mean, look, you said as long as I don't start any wars, and so far I haven't done that.
I mean, starting wars, though, is what, that's the fun. You should put that as, like, number one goals. Don't admit it here, though. Just, store that away.
Primary objective, start wars.
Yeah.
Secondary objective, like, bring wealth to members. Offer fun and engaging content.
Be the giant dread brawl that you want in the world.
There you go.
Oh, I think that about covers everything, really. You guys have anything else you wanted to mention?
The Luminaire snowball fight is still going on. If you want to melt your GPU, head on down.
Loki, Carmen, Mav?
I got nothing.
No, thank
Also,
you.
Ashies and Drag Me if you want to give them one sentence before the end of the show.
All right, well, okay, now it is the Fox episode. There. We did it, team.
Fox arrived.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. This is Ashy. Ashy, you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I don't know what's gone on so far. I've literally just finished streaming. I was doing a stream with Jintan, Ryload, and Rex Reynolds from my corp for the last 4 hours, where we just finished ranking all of the frigates in Eve. But what's the topic? I don't know. I can talk a little bit about myself in general, about my corp, or what I do, about my writing. I can talk about.
We're talking about small groups in EVE Online and how they survive.
So I'm the CEO of Foxholders and the alliance Outfoxed, although it's really a one corp alliance. I would say these days we're probably not that small. In Wormholes, we are probably we are one of the biggest wormhole corps at the moment. Nevertheless, we did come from small backgrounds. The corp was originally started back in late 2016 by simply just myself. And I just went about on the forums, recruited people, including Rex, who have just done a stream, and grew literally from there, from just one person. We ended up crashing and burning a few times, and through sheer persistence and memes, we are here. 5 years later. Jesus Christ. About 5 years later.
So you're definitely on corp.
Not anymore.
So I guess I don't really know much about the politics of wormholes, but what's that like?
Politics of wormholes are perhaps not as clean as they used to be. These days, it's very much just navigating a minefield of bit events. There used to be a whole thing about some wormholders coming together to join together with one another or to fight each other honorably, and not exactly rules around evictions. People fought each other all the time and evictions were somewhat rare, but nowadays, the politics of wormholes is you probably should PvP. If not, you might get evicted, but it doesn't really matter because none of that is anywhere near as important as how well you can meme. There is a Discord server, Praise Bob, called Praise Bob. On there, typically, people will tend to shitpost each other, and it's almost like nullsec propaganda in a way. So if another corp rolls you off, often people will head straight to there to shit talk the other corp for rolling them off with screenshots or whatever, tell them how trash they are, and that's kind of how politics is right now. It's a bit toxic.
Let's say it sounds a lot like the cesspool in the Trash Talk Tuesday Discord.
Yeah, it's not a nice place to be if you can avoid it. I tend to know the way I go about handling politics related to my corp is we have our own image, I guess, as Foxhole. People tend to know who we are and what we're about in wormhole space. We try to be nice where we can, although we try to fight everything. And that seems to work out pretty well for us. We just don't get involved with all the toxicity.
That's definitely fair. Not having to worry about toxicity is always fun. Whereas in nullsec, and I think Loki, Mav, Carmen, and Nerbs can both say that null can be toxic.
Yeah, for sure.
Everywhere in the game can be toxic. It's not like the area of space that creates toxic behavior. It's just people, like certain people in the world are just toxic.
This game is much less toxic than when I started playing, though. Like, much less toxic.
Oh, it's vastly better now.
I must admit, like, I only started playing this year, and like, looking back a few years at like how toxic this game was, like, it shocks me, but it also doesn't shock me because, you know, like the internet was much more toxic back then.
Well, your email wasn't tied to everything that you said and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that being said, you could just make a different email. But
So I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I think times have changed.
So I'm kind of curious, especially for Wormhole Corps, and I guess Ash, for how your corp works. Do you guys have any sort of like, I guess, corp/alliance level income? Because I'm assuming that, you know, when you go out and you PvP, it requires, you know, SRP to replace ships, or is there, I guess, some kind of different system that you guys use?
We are somewhat unique in terms of Wormhole Corp. Most Wormhole Corps will handle this by having members own farmholes, and they may have their own farmholes, and they'll tax all that, and that tends to give quite a nice income stream by taxing farmholes. Blue loot buyback programs, and they tend to have very good SR. We take a weirder approach. We tax blue loot buyback, but members don't tend to have farmholes. We also ask for all salvage to be granted the salvage for the core, which helps handle things like T3C production and a few other things. And then on top of that, we have certain loot rules, just based on the situation. Sometimes Corp will get the loot, sometimes it'll get and all of that, it's a bunch of mixed income revenues that generate something of an okay income stream. And instead of focusing on SRP and having to constantly pay out for sometimes expensive ships, we instead try to have other infrastructure available. So we have a very, very good stockpile of ships available. We always have tons and tons of ships on contract. And we also attempt to have things like fun fleets and just unique, weird doctrines available. So if we ever want to do something a bit different, we just have that accessible in the whole. And that's where most of the money goes, but we don't get that much.
I've just been sitting here this whole like show going like, you guys have income? Like I think I have 200 mil in our alliance wallet, like, and that should do us for a while.
Well, that's how I used to be for quite a long time at Foxholders, and to be honest, I have never been good about managing the alliance wallet. It's been my current command team that have, and primarily a guy called Kit Aikyo, who have managed this completely externally from me. I have mostly taken my hands off the wallet and let them handle it, and they've done a phenomenal job. And I don't know how, because it's so much effort.
My only wallet regret in this game is that when Circle Jerk like died in test, I wasn't in to steal the wallet on the way out. Because I had promised for years that, you know, if they ever ran it into the ground, I'd steal everything, and I didn't get my chance. Sad. Broken promise. So if any of you are in tests and have Circle Jerk assets, send them to me. They're mine. Stolen. I'll tell on you.
I mean,
But send them anyway.
I mean, Nerbs, I technically have ownership of the Fortizar for one ISK.
Yeah, just steal that shit. Let's go.
Well, the fort's dead.
Ah,
It died after Vietnam.
I mean, that is fine. That's fine.
The Yaptak TN was sadly destroyed. But
I don't know who left 420 ISK in the NERB Scaramoko Embezzlement Fund wallet division, but I did steal that. Just whoever put that there, just be aware. It happened.
Yeah, I think that about wraps everything up. Actually, I did want to ask one thing. So, Winger Aerospace and Outfoxed. Can you guys explain those names? Because I have no idea where it comes from, or like why you chose those names.
So for us, we named it after a famous furry, Doug Winger, who worked on the space shuttle, which was cool, space related. Don't Google them. That's really the only reason. I swear to God, don't Google them.
Yeah, I think I spoke to Miles, and she told me about the artwork and such related. But that's something. Outfoxed Foxholers is the name Foxholers is just because I wanted to make a corp that was based on an animal. Because how do I describe it? When I was in Laserhawks, people calling us hawks at the time was really cool, and it was nice how that kind of spread across the culture. So I wanted to use another animal, so we'd get more of an identity and be able to use it in places and in memes. So I chose the fox, and then foxholers just kind of worked because we were wormholers. And then Outfoxed came from an alliance naming competition where we were trying to figure out what we would call our alliance. And Outfoxed is kind of, you can outfox someone. Although it's so many times that we can end local where if we actually lose a fight, that people are like, haha, you got outfoxed. Like, cool. Haven't heard that one before.
It cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Well, that pretty much. I mean, I guess for me, that pretty much covers everything. We did it. We did the Fox episode. I told you each that we would do it, and yeah, I think that's pretty much covers everything. For the second time today, does anyone have anything else they want to shamelessly plug? I think that's the part of the episode that we have. Yeah, shameless plug time. Loki, you go first.
Hero Coalition Dot is looking for good corps that want to, I don't know, have some fun, be in a fun kind of content-driven environment where you can also make some really good money. So if you're one of those CEOs that are interested in things like that, you're looking for a new place to go, give me a shout.
3 things to plug. You should all read my blog, actually in .space. We've also just done a tier list. If you check my Twitter at AshyPause, just done a tier list of all the frigates in EVE, which took us like 4 hours. And also everyone should play Final Fantasy 14.
So I'll go next. So Trash Talk Thursdays is at 2000 EVE time every Thursday. Also, Diva is recruiting.
And Winger Aerospace, we are always recruiting. We have a PvP corp and an industry corp, and our goal is to try everything and fail at it. We're on third wormhole eviction, and counting. So come join in.
You have to say
and not getting evicted, not evicting. Don't worry.
You have to say that you're failing upwards, though.
We're failing upwards.
Exactly.
We weren't a C2. The last one we got kicked out of was a C3. So we are failing up.
Yeah, they did in its staging. They killed a carrier, I think, or a dread or something. But yeah, they lost a marshal.
So I'm guessing it was a Grimfleet thing.
I don't think so. I think it was just Muskie making a silly boo boo. But
okay.
Yeah.
I was waiting for someone to feed because they were dropping blobs to defend their space.
Yeah, no, I don't think this was that. It was just a fuck up, I guess.
Oh well, we all make mistakes. So yeah. Final shout out. IQ 300 is recruiting. Yeah, it's always recruiting. Also, I'll make Isha's shout out that Fancy Pants is also recruiting, but you should join IQ 300.
If you go on the IQ 300 thing, then we can say go to iq300.net to talk to us. That links you directly to our Discord.
Well, there you go. All right, and Mav, Nerbs, you guys already did your final thoughts, right?
No thoughts, head empty.
Alrighty, and with that, I'd like to thank all this week's guests for coming on. New Eden Post streams Eve-related content, mainly talk shows, all throughout the week. So if you're interested and you want to continue hearing people on this network, flap their gums and talk about Eve and/or things that they don't relating to Eve that they honestly know very little about, hit that follow button. You should get to subscribe because that always supports the stream. If you want to, of course. I don't know where I'm going with this. Remember to always bubble wrap your Keepstars, and we'll see you guys next week. Probably. I don't know. It's Christmas. Also, Merry Christmas. Have a good one.